what is going on with the Tampa Bay Rays and their stadium, and no better voice to talk about that topic than our good pal Marc Topkin from the Tampa Bay Times, Rays Insider. Hey, Mark, how are you?
I'm good, Jay. How are you?
I'm great, man. As no shortage of dull moments when it comes to the Tampa Bay Rays, and for you, I'm glad you got to take some time and spend with the family. And but man, it's like you come back and here you go, man. It's just a bunch of craziness. For other teams, it could be trades, it could be free agent signings, but for the Rays, it's this stadium deal. Did you think when everything a couple of months ago seemed like, all right, we're going to see shovels on the ground? Did you ever think we were going to get to a point where there's still a lot of back and forth and there's still a lot of uncertainty?
Nah, I guess I'm just naive. I actually thought a signed deal between three parties was pretty legit, and the fact that they all celebrated it and toasted it and had a press conference, I foolishly thought that meant it was done, but obviously it wasn't. It isn't. We've since run through a number of issues that have come up here, obviously all related to the financing, and I don't think we really know what's going to happen yet. And I'm not sure if you had Stu Sternberg or Ken Welch on your show that they would know either, to be honest with you. I feel like we're just at a moment of uncertainty, of a lack of clarity, of a couple of different paths this could lead down. And there's obviously been a lot of behind the scenes conversations. Some of those were shared at the city council meeting yesterday, and I think there's going to be more in advance of the county commission meeting coming up on December 17th.
Yeah, and it's, I had Chris LaValla on a couple of weeks ago, and I just want to try to get all sides, right? Because everybody's looking at Chris LaValla. How could you not be in agreement for this deal? But he's speaking on behalf of the people that voted him in there. So he's got to look at this from a different perspective. So people were like, why would you have him on the podcast? I'm like, I want to hear what he has to say, because this is a very, thorough type of issue. It's not just baseball. It's not just, hey, it's a stadium. It's everything around it. And we've been very fortunate to have one of your colleagues, Colleen, right on the program too. And she's been there spending 12 hours a day at city council meetings and county commission meetings. Is it surprising to you that even after all this time, I don't even know if we have more clarity?
I mean, it's not surprising. It's kind of depressing, I guess, in a way, if you want to answer. I was with Colleen and John Romano at that city council meeting yesterday, and yeah, quick shout out to Colleen, because now having sat through 2 city council meetings in the last month or so, I mean, I don't know how she does it, and I'll probably say this and it'll come back and bite me here, but the worst baseball game is still better than the best city council meeting to cover. And it was a good reminder of how fortunate we are to live in the sports world sometimes. But because, yeah, just and respectful of everything that they do. But just going through a city council meeting, wow, what a long process that is. And look, a lot of different people, a lot of different opinions. There were some really poignant speakers yesterday at the city council. St. Pete did approve it. But, yeah, I mean, I think the part that's the most troubling or concerning part of this, and Jay, I think we always have to say respectful of all the other issues that have happened in this community due to the hurricane. I said before, like, if you had that crawl could almost say, like, all these comments are respectful of people that truly lost homes and jobs and millions of dollars and all that kind of thing. But having said that, it's just that there's no North Star here. Like, you don't know who actually knows what's going to happen. Where is this actually headed? And I really don't think anyone knows. I think, take everyone at their word. The Rays want to stay. The Rays don't think this current deal will work under the financials with the impact of the hurricane. The county wants to reconsider. I mean, I think there's some merit to the argument that some have made that, the deal was done by the previous county commission and that the current makeup should be respectful of that. But, I listened to that Chris LaValla interview you had, and certainly, the other point is that they're the people sitting in the chair now, and then the situation has changed. So I think everyone to a certain degree is right, but also there has to be, a resolution here. This cannot continue to go on. The clock is ticking. It took the Rays a lot of work to figure out 2025. Now they're trying to figure out 2026 and 2027 and 2028 and beyond. I mean, I just typed a couple paragraphs for a Sunday story, and the gist of it was they don't know if they're going to be playing in Tampa Bay area in 2026, if they're going to be playing in an interim home somewhere else in 2026, or they could be gone for good. I don't think anyone knows that. And That's a pretty significant, variety of options and outcomes there.
Yeah, and I think that's the scary part about it is, for a team that does struggle with attendance at times, um, for them to be out of sight, out of mind for 2 years, and then, oh yeah, come back. That's certainly, in my opinion, not a recipe for success, Mark.
Right, and that's even assuming they're coming back. I mean,
Right.
that and again, that's I think part of this. If you knew that the new stadium was going to be built and the issue was what to do with the Trop and where do you play in those interim years, that's one fairly significant problem. If you had the Trop to play in through 2027 or 2028 as originally planned, but you had an issue with the new stadium, then that would be a different significant problem to work on. But now you put both in there together, and the impact of that, and the Pinellas County suggestion of should they stay in the county, the rules of the previous agreement versus the rules of the new agreement, the provisions, did they do wrong by going to Hillsborough? There's so many different layers to this, and I think that's just added to the complexity, and everyone, kind of defending their own side of this. And I know there's been some discussion in the community. I don't know if there's any proven validity to it yet, but will Hillsborough try to make yet another run at offering their own stadium? I know Ken Hagan has spoken out along those lines. So there's just too many layers to this at this late date. There needs to be some resolution here. And I think, some focus to, is it this deal happening or not? I know some of the things mentioned at city council meeting yesterday, they had a meeting. The mayor said he had a meeting with Stu Sternberg, was ways to address, I think what they called it was the perceived revenue shortfall. And if there's things they can do to help the Rays, but not putting more money into the deal from the city perspective. Maybe it's going to be Jay Recher Stadium. I don't know. Maybe he's got something in the works.
I'm going to have to dig deep into the Ronnie Lane retirement fund and see if he can send me some shillings. I don't mind sharing it with him. But you mentioned like the city council meeting yesterday, and some members we didn't hear from the Rays, and somebody else was like, yeah, we talked to them. We told them not to come. We've heard that on both city council meetings and county commissioner meetings, where there's certain members that are like, I haven't heard from them. And then others like, oh yeah, we heard from that. Isn't that? And somebody else said, all right, this isn't a great way to start off a 30-year partnership. Like the lack of communication in all parties. I'm not trying to throw blame at anybody, but you're getting different messages from all of these people that are supposed to be working together for this deal that's going to make our community better. Like that is true. Like that's not a great way to start off a partnership, because then it seems like there's a lack of transparency when we know, Mark, that there's a lack of communication here.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say that there have been some communication issues. I think there's some trust issues. And also I'm not really good at like negotiating stuff, but it also, would kind of make sense to me that you're going to speak and be more open with the people that are on your side than the people that are not on your side, right? So, Chris Latvala, for example, has been a no to this process the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're the Rays, it probably doesn't make sense to invest time and energy and capital into spending time with him if he's going to vote no anyway. Whereas some of the other commissioners, maybe they're more open that voted no previously or have indicated they would be against it, would be open to discussion. So I kind of get that aspect too. Like I said earlier, I think you could make a case, to a degree, everyone's right in what they're saying. That's what they believe. That's what they feel, whatever side of this they're on. But, said we need a referee here. We need a clock. We need someone to say this has to be resolved. I mean, I don't know, Jay, does this all end up in court? Does this go on for years and years?
Yeah, it seems like a litigation, right? I mean, seems like we're on the precipice of something like that, because now what happens? All right, so the city approved the bonds yesterday. What happens if the county commission, after delaying this vote a couple of times, what if they approve the bonds on December 17th? Then what do the Rays do, right? Because they're waiting for the city and the county are like, all right, well, if you want to back out, send a termination letter. The Rays don't want to do that because whether, people agree or disagree, they don't want to give up some of the vernacular in that deal that says they can develop on that land. And even if they leave, they have that land, which is, I can understand that, right? If you got that in writing, you don't want to get rid of that. Because that is one of the things that has really given some pause that are against this deal. Like, do we really want to give the Rays this control of the land surrounding the stadium? The Rays have that in writing. So it makes sense for them not to be so forthright of here's a termination letter. But Mark, where do they go if the county, Pinellas County, passes the bonds on December 17th and now it's on them?
I think that's of all the different scenarios, just from a theater standpoint, that's probably the most interesting one, because you're right. And one of the St. Pete City Council members yesterday, I don't remember which one, but she said she felt, in essence, by voting for the bonds yesterday, the city was calling the Rays bluff and saying, okay, we're still doing this deal under the current terms that were agreed upon. And then she also said she would urge the county to do the same. So that would set it up exactly as you say. And then in theory, that would seem to force the Rays to then make a decision. Can they find a way to still make this deal work? Can they suggest some changes that the city and county would be amenable to? Do they walk away at that point and we think forfeit their rights to do the land development deal? Or is there another option out there, which I don't think we've all seen some of these coming previously. So maybe there is some other option out there too. But no, I agree with you. I think that probably puts the Rays, whatever cliche you want to say, on the clock here, on the spot, ball in their court, whichever one we want to use. But I do think that the county approving it does shift the onus to the Rays, and it's kind of their option then if they want to proceed or terminate or find a way to renegotiate.
You brought up a great point before, Mark, about how it's not just one, two, it's everything, right? It's the whole ball of wax here. Are we completely out of the possibility that the Rays can play in the Trop at some point between now and the day of the new stadium? Because I know that that's an entire thing, going through insurance. How much can we kick in? Because it seems like for all the talks that we've had about bonds lately, we're not talking about, all right, those, as you alluded to, 26 and 27, maybe 28, where if you throw some money, if you work on the Trop, you could at least use it for 3 years. Even, like you said, we also have to be aware that another storm could come, right, and rip the top off it again. What's the latest on that aspect of the deal of possibly trying to refurbish the Trop so they can play some baseball there before the new stadium?
Yeah, and in fact, Colleen Wright, I think, had that this morning too. That I wasn't aware of this. There's a vote scheduled for next week. The St. Pete City Council. That's their bet. That's just them. That's not the county, just the city on that one. That they're going to vote on at least starting some more initial work. They turned down the vote to do all the work on the Trop, but there's a vote to at least authorize some initial work on that. And no, I don't think the Trop is out. And I think that, this was brought up. I think Brian Ault said this at the previous city council meeting. Again, it all blurs together. I apologize. I don't have the scorebook where I can tell you what inning it was and what pitch we're talking about here. But I think Brian Ault brought it up, saying that they might be better off, or they've talked to the Rays, and maybe they'd be better off talking about a settlement over the Trop, because the city is obligated to provide a playing facility for the Rays for the terms of the lease. And that they'd be better off getting a settlement than having the Trop fixed. So that's another. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know enough about the finances. Without knowing what their options are, I'm not sure how they would know whether that's the right deal or the wrong deal. But no, I don't think fixing the Trop is out of the question. The Rays' initial objections to the city plan a couple weeks ago were that they didn't think the price, they thought it was going to be more expensive than the city thought, and they thought it would take longer than the city projected. And that city timeline, I made it through most of that 412-page report. I didn't think my computer could even handle the download, but it did. It did. Times computer made it through. Yeah, that timeline was like for it to be kind of done a month before opening day, but like finishing touches like the week before opening day. And then look, they could ask MLB to put them on the road the first 2 weeks. They could buy some extra time, whatever needed. But yeah, that would be, I could see where the Rays would be a little uncomfortable with that. And their point was they didn't want to be in a situation where they're planning to go back in the Trop, but because the repairs would be ongoing up until months before, obviously the MLB schedule is done well before that, they would almost have to have two plans. And then if that plan wasn't playing in the Tampa Bay area, it would be very logistically hard for everybody. If it was playing in the Tampa Bay area, would they want to risk another summer of being exposed to the rain and the heat? And this year we know that schedule was tweaked somewhat to accommodate them. Do you have to do that again? Like there's a lot of moving pieces to just say, oh, well, if the Trop's not ready, go play somewhere else. You can't just do that. So I get that. Is there a scenario where the Trop is fixed for 27 and the Rays make, a second year of a temporary home, perhaps in the Tampa Bay area, whether stay at Steinbrenner, play in Clearwater, wherever. I don't know. Is that another thing that's going to end up on the table here? And then they fix the Trop, or do you say, you know what, don't fix the Trop, use that money to go into this new stadium deal somehow and Maybe it's easier to build the new stadium if you're not like those sites are adjacent.
Mm-hmm.
So it would seem, just as a layman, that if you're trying to fix the Trop and you're trying to build the new stadium, and they're basically are properties that abut each other, and you need some shared space there, you need shared crews, you should share materials. Is it easier to just build a new stadium and knock down the Trop? I don't know.
Jeez, just when you thought, right? You knew everything about baseball. You worry about trades and your salary caps, and you have to be a lawyer and a doctor, and then this whole thing comes out. Right. You have to totally reorganize everything you think you know about the game. Marc Topkin, Tampa Bay Times, Times_race. Check him out on Twitter/X. Marc, always so great to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time, man. I'm so glad you got to see your family for the holidays. Grandpa Topkin, it looks good on you, brother. I when I look at you, I think about my mom and dad. They just, when they became grandparents, they have like this different glow about them, and you can certainly see that with you, man. So happy for you and your family. And again, thanks for your time, and we'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Sounds good. Appreciate it.